Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, before the pandemic, I always took great concern with workers from out of the province coming in and many times taking jobs from New Brunswickers here, especially with such a high unemployment rate. But during the pandemic, it raises the issue even higher in my mind. And we've received several calls in our office about quote-unquote essential workers coming in from out of province here in New Brunswick. So my question is for the Premier. Do we know exactly how many essential workers there are in New Brunswick that are not from New Brunswick?
The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you for the question. And Mr. Speaker, we do. I don't know the number exactly, but these workers that come into the province have to set up through WorkSafe to ensure that they're following all the protocols. And that doesn't mean that they do isolate for 14 days before they go to work. It means that their workplace has been defined. They know what area they're working in. They're isolated from other workers in the province. If that can't be the case, then they do have to isolate for 14 days. But we're doing the same thing with our companies here as they move into other provinces as well to work or tender in contracts. So it's part of starting up the economy. It's part of taking additional risk and getting the our businesses up and running as they did in the past. So the point of having WorkSafe evaluate the site. The applications are made to WorkSafe. They evaluate the site and they determine what protocols need to be in place to make it safe to operate. I can get the number of how many are here now, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
The member for Fredericton, Grand Lake and leader of his party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Premier for that answer. I'd like to dig a little deeper down into that because it's not just the amount of people from out of province, companies from other provinces that are here working, but the question is what deems them essential? If we have workers here in New Brunswick that can do the same job, is it not fair and right that we protect our own New Brunswick workers, especially considering the pandemic and the fact that we're closing our borders to everybody else? So, Mr. Speaker, my question again is for the Premier. In terms of essential workers, how is that classified and what deems a worker essential to come in from out of New Brunswick to take jobs from New Brunswickers?
The Honourable the Premier.
Well, I guess it reminds me of the temporary foreign worker thing where I was trying to give more jobs to New Brunswickers, and that didn't seem to get as much support in the House here, particularly as it might have. In this case, Mr. Speaker, businesses go out and tender their contracts, and then people bid on it, and it's part of opening up our economy. There's also situations where in some it appears that are utilizing this particular pandemic as maybe saying, well, I have the capability to do this, when in the past, history would have shown that, let's say you're working at a mill or you're working at a plant and there's certain skill sets required to work at that plant. And you bring a variety of people in. There can be different groups. Certainly any of these companies, we expect them to use the majority of people from New Brunswick or use all the people from New Brunswick who are actually trained and able to do the job. There are specialties that are required from time to time for project to project, and they will bring in from out of the province, maybe even out of the country, in order to get their plant up and running or to do the specialty work. That's what I'm told is the case here, and we would expect that to be followed, Mr. Speaker.
Le député de